Why was everyone laughing at her again? Moore stood in formation at fort, the morning sun dragging long shadows across the training field. 22 recruits around her shuffled boots, stretched sore muscles, and cracked jokes the way young soldiers always did when nerves had to hide behind noise. Their laughter wasn't cruel, not entirely, but she felt its weight all the same. The target of the moment, the cracked, unreliable watch on her wrist. It was a relic, a timepiece older than most of them. The crystal face was shattered into a spiderweb of lines, the numbers nearly faded, and the second hand skipped like a drunk stumbling home. Useless, they called it, broken, and they weren't wrong. But she never took it off. "Hey, Moore, what time is it?" Private shouted across the line, his voice mock serious. Snickers followed, quick and sharp. Squinted down at the watch, adjusting the worn leather strap like it might anchor her against the morning wind. She lifted her chin. 7:15, give or take a decade. The laughter came louder this time. She allowed herself a small smirk because sometimes humor was the best shield. Still, the crack in her voice betrayed the sting. The watch wasn't just metal and gears. It was her father's, a promise she had made at a graveside. But that wasn't a story she was ready to hand over to boys who thought war was still an adventure. Private, tall and restless, jogged closer. "Seriously, why not get a new one? PX sells decent watches for $20. That thing looks like it survived World War II." "World War II would been an improvement," muttered. She tugged her sleeve down over the watch, hiding it again. Some things didn't need defending. Some things carried meaning you couldn't explain to a room full of 19-year-olds desperate to belong. The laughter stopped the moment Staff Sergeant Williams appeared. He didn't bark. He didn't need to. His presence was like a thundercloud, heavy and impossible to ignore. Spines snapped straight. Conversations died. "Listen up," Williams said, his voice carrying across the grounds. "Today we move past basics. You've all fired rifles at 100 meters. Big deal. Today we talk precision, long-distance accuracy, the kind of shooting that separates professionals from amateurs." Excitement flickered in some eyes, nerves in others. Long-range shooting meant exposure, your skill laid bare in front of everyone. There was no hiding in a crowd when your bullet traveled 6 football fields before hitting its mark. Williams kept talking, his tone sharp but calm. "Gear matters. Reliability matters. From boots to weapons to, yes, even the watch on your wrist. If your equipment fails, you fail. And failure in the wrong place costs lives." His gaze swept across the formation, and it landed square on its wrist, on the broken watch. The recruits shifted, stifling grins. "Moore," Williams said, almost amused. "That antique of yours wouldn't happen to have a stopwatch function, would it?" Felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice steady. "If it does, Staff Sergeant, it's about as reliable as everything else on this watch. Which is to say, not at all." Williams nodded once, lips twitching like he almost admired her honesty. "Then maybe one of your fellow recruits will handle timing duties. Sentiment's fine, Moore. Just remember, sentiment won't keep you alive." The words hit harder than she expected. Maybe because they were true. Maybe because that watch, the one she wore like armor, had already failed at keeping someone alive. She didn't answer. She just fell into step with the others as they marched toward the rifle range, boots grinding gravel into dust. Beside her, Private spoke softly, never joked like the others. Her voice barely rose above the sound of crunching boots. "My grandmother had a watch like that. Kept it for 40 years after my grandfather died. Never worked right, but she wore it until the day she passed." Turned her head, surprised by the quiet confession. "Some things are worth keeping even when they're broken." "Sometimes especially when they're broken," agreed. The words stayed with as the rifle range came into view. Rows of concrete shooting benches stretched toward the horizon. Beyond them, silhouettes of targets stood at impossible distances, heat shimmer already rising to blur their edges. Williams gathered the group. His speech was precise, well-practiced. Advanced marksmanship isn't just about hitting a target, it's ballistics, wind, patience. Patience most of you don't have yet. He pointed downrange. 600 meters today. Some of you won't even find the target. That's fine, you'll learn. Stomach tightened when he called her name first. Being first meant no example to follow, no mistakes to learn from. Just the weight of 22 pairs of eyes waiting to laugh. She settled behind her rifle, bipod down, scope adjusted, breathing measured. The target was barely more than a dot in the wavering heat. Behind her, whispers drifted. Think she'll even hit? Depends if she can see it through that broken watch. She blocked them out, finger against the trigger, inhale, half exhale, pressure steady. The rifle cracked. The recoil was sharp, familiar. Through the scope she saw the target jolt. Not center, not perfect, but a hit. On target, Williams called out. Better than most of you will manage. Relief loosened her chest. She slung her rifle, moving back to the group. His voice met her with quiet approval. Nice shot, that's not easy. But barely heard her. Because the watch was warm, vibrating faintly against her wrist. She glanced down. The cracked face flickered, numbers flashing where time should be. Fragments of symbols, coordinates, or just her imagination. Probably just dying for good, she told herself. But something about the rhythm of the flicker felt intentional, like it wanted to say something. Foster, the loudmouth of the group, drifted over during a break. Having trouble with your relic, his smirk carried the usual mockery. It's acting stranger than usual, admitted, eyes fixed on the face. Almost like it's trying to run something else. Maybe it's finally giving up, Foster chuckled. Before she could respond, the watch blazed with sudden light. Flinched, Foster swore under his breath, stepping back. On the cracked face, glowing sharp and impossibly clear, were numbers, coordinates, and words. Confirmed kill, 3,000 meters. His breath caught. A date followed, 15 years ago, then initials, her father's initials. The glow snapped off, the watch going dark again, returning to its broken, useless self. But the silence it left was heavier than any rifle shot. Foster's eyes darted to her. More, what the hell is that thing? She tugged her sleeve down. It doesn't mean anything. But she knew it did. Every joke they had made about her watch had just turned to ash. And deep inside, she realized something she had never dared to consider before. Her father's secrets hadn't been buried with him. They were ticking, pulsing, waiting, right here on her wrist. What was worse, Foster's question or the silence that followed? Pulled her sleeve lower, hiding the glow that had already vanished. The recruits were too focused on their own shots to notice, but Foster had seen. His eyes weren't mocking anymore. They were sharp, suspicious. "Forget what you saw," she muttered. Foster didn't answer. His silence was louder than any joke he'd ever made. Williams' voice broke the tension. "Next shooter, you're up." The training continued, but thoughts spun. She tried to listen for the crack of rifles, the staff sergeant's corrections, the chatter of recruits waiting their turn. But all she could hear was the echo of words burned into her memory. Confirmed kill, 3,000 meters, her father's initials. The world around her blurred into background noise. She remembered him as a quiet man, strong but never boastful. He taught her to shoot tin cans off a fence post, how to line up iron sights, how to breathe. But he'd never once mentioned service beyond the vague "I did my part." He never bragged, never told war stories, never revealed this. 15 years ago, a kill at 3,000 meters. Was it even possible? Shot cracked, followed by a curse when he missed. Laughter bubbled in the ranks. Normal noise, noise she used to blend into. But she couldn't blend anymore. Her turn came again. This time, 800 meters, a distance that made even the confident ones shift uncomfortably. Wind danced in the distance, tiny devils spinning dust in unpredictable swirls. She lay prone, rifle steady, heart beat loud in her ears. The watch warmed again. Not a blaze this time, not a shock, just a subtle hum. The cracked face glowed faintly, scrolling numbers across the glass: wind speed, distance, elevation, calculations, data she'd only just begun to learn. Her breath caught. This was cheating. Or maybe it was survival. She adjusted, held steady, pressed the trigger. The shot was perfect, dead center. The silence that followed was heavier than applause. Williams lowered his binoculars. His voice carried slow, measured respect. Outstanding shot, Moore. That's not beginner's luck, that's precision. Behind her, recruits whispered. Martinez asked the question out loud. How did you even do that? Forced a shrug. Guess I got lucky. No one believed her. Foster's voice cut through. It wasn't luck, it was that watch. I saw it light up earlier. Every head turned, eyes pinned her in place. His jaw tightened. You don't know what you saw. Williams raised a hand. Enough, pack your gear, dismissed. His eyes lingered on. More, stay behind. The others shuffled off, whispers chasing them like shadows. Stayed kneeling at the firing line, pulse racing. Williams walked closer, boots crunching gravel. He knelt beside her, voice low. I've been in the Army 22 years. I've seen miracles and I've seen lies. That shot, that wasn't a recruit pulling the trigger. That was something else. She stared at the dirt. I don't know what you mean. Williams' gaze shifted to her wrist. That watch isn't standard issue. Show me. Her first instinct was to refuse, but something in his tone, steady, not accusing, made her unstrap it. She placed it in his hand. Williams turned it over slowly, studying the cracks, the worn strap. He ran a thumb across the back, pausing at faint metallic contacts most would overlook. This isn't just a watch. It's been modified. Who did it belong to? My father whispered. James Moore, he served, died when I was 16. Williams' expression tightened. He handed it back carefully. I'll make some inquiries. In the meantime, keep that thing covered. Don't let the others see it again. Not unless you want questions you can't answer. Slid it back onto her wrist, sleeve tugged down. The weight felt heavier than ever. She thought it was just a watch. Now it was a secret. The following days blurred, training drills, marches, classroom lessons. On the surface nothing changed, but felt the shift. Whispers followed her in the chow hall. Eyes lingered on her in formation. Offered quiet words. People are curious. It'll pass. But knew it wouldn't. Foster avoided jokes. Instead, he studied her with the unease of someone who had seen too much. Gave her space. Even the loudest of the bunch treated her with caution. The watch stayed quiet until the night exercise. 3 days later, recruits moved in pairs through forest trails, navigating by compass and map. No GPS, no shortcuts, the kind of drill that revealed who trusted their instincts and who panicked in the dark. This group was Henderson and Martinez. They were making good progress until Martinez stumbled, twisting his ankle. He cursed, trying to stand, but couldn't. Go on without me, Martinez said, leaning against a tree. It's just a drill. Henderson shook his head. We don't leave people behind. The argument was still forming when his wrist buzzed. Her breath caught. She pulled back her sleeve. The watch glowed again, not with time but with a map. Their position marked in pulsing light. Other recruits marked too, one group less than 200 meters away. Hesitated. Telling the truth wasn't an option. I thought I heard voices that way, she said, pointing where the watch indicated. They moved, and there they were, group, lost in their own struggle with the map. With their help, Martinez was carried back toward base. Lucky break, Henderson said. Yeah, murmured, but she knew luck had nothing to do with it. That night, lying in her bunk, she stared at the watch glowing faintly on her desk. Not a relic, not a joke, a machine, a weapon, and a message from her father 15 years late. The next morning, Staff Sergeant Williams summoned her to the commander's office. Her gut twisted as she walked across base, boots echoing against pavement. Most recruits only entered that building for punishment or recognition. She couldn't tell which awaited her. Inside, Captain Richards sat behind a desk stacked with folders. William stood to one side. A third man was present, civilian clothes, sharp eyes. "Private Moore," Richards said. "This is Mr. Department of Defense." His throat dried. Leaned forward, calm but firm. "We've reviewed your father's file. The watch you wear wasn't standard issue. It's a tactical support device from a classified program. Technology that remains restricted even today." Her stomach dropped. "It was a gift," she said quickly. "My mother gave it to me after he died. I didn't know." "We believe you," interrupted. "Your father was authorized to keep it, but now it's active again, and that means decisions must be made." William's voice cut in. "Tell them what it's been doing." Hesitated, then described the marksmanship data, the navigation display, the coordinates. She left out the shaking in her hands, the fear, the way her father's initials had burned into her memory. Scribbled notes. When she finished, he closed his notebook. "It's more than a watch. It calculates firing solutions, tracks targets, navigates terrain. It records mission data. That 3,000-meter entry you saw, that was your father. His service record shows similar feats, exceptional ones." Her breath caught. A sniper. Her father hadn't been the quiet mechanic she remembered. He'd been something else entirely. Richards folded his hands. "Private Moore, you now face a choice. You can surrender the device for secure disposal, or you can transfer into a specialized program. There you'll be trained to use it properly, but the path is dangerous, demanding, few succeed." Looked down at the cracked face on her wrist. The same broken glass she had stared at every day for years. The only thing she had left of him. Now it was more than memory, it was legacy. "Can I have time to decide?" she asked, her voice barely steady. 24 hours, Richards said. She nodded, left the office. The air outside felt heavier, thicker. Every step back to the barracks was slower than the last. For years she thought the watch only kept time badly. Now she knew it was keeping secrets, her father's secrets. And if she chose wrong, those secrets would be buried again. Why did silence feel louder than gunfire? Lay awake in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, the watch resting on her chest. She had strapped it back on since leaving the commander's office. It was heavier than it looked, heavy with what it meant, heavy with what it demanded. Give it up, they'd said, or step into a different life. But neither option came without ghosts. She turned the cracked face toward the faint light leaking through the barracks window. The wrong time flickered there as always. 2:13 or maybe 7:48 depending on how you squinted. Worthless. Until it was. Until it glowed with secrets she was never meant to see. Her father had never told her. He'd left her with chores, with lessons about patience, with how to line up a scope and not jerk the trigger. He'd left her with kindness, with silence. And now, years too late with this. She wanted to hate him for it, but she couldn't. Because part of her, some secret, fragile part, was proud. By dawn, her eyes burned from lack of sleep. She rolled out of bed, strapping the watch back onto her wrist like armor, even though it didn't feel like armor anymore. It felt like a question she couldn't answer. In the chow hall, whispers still followed her. She ignored them, carrying her tray past stairs that were sharper than bullets. Found her sliding onto the bench without asking. Her voice was quiet as always. "You didn't eat last night. You should." Stabbed at scrambled eggs, not hungry. His eyes flicked to the watch under her sleeve. She didn't ask about it. She just sat there steady. The kind of presence that asked nothing, offered everything. "My grandfather fought in Vietnam," said softly. "He never told anyone what he went through. My grandmother used to say some memories weigh too much to put into words. Maybe your father was like that." His throat tightened. "He could told me something." Maybe he thought silence was mercy, replied. Some people choose to carry the weight so their family doesn't have to. The words sank in like stones. Wasn't sure if they brought comfort or made the silence heavier. She left breakfast early, walking out into the sharp morning air, letting the chills sting her awake. That's when Foster caught up to her. Moore, hold up. His voice wasn't mocking this time. No laugh waiting to burst through. Just serious, almost nervous. She turned, guarded. What? He scratched at his jaw, eyes darting like he was deciding whether to speak at all. About the other day, at the range. I know I probably screwed things up by pointing at your watch in front of everyone. That was stupid. But listen. He paused, lowering his voice. If you're in some kind of trouble over this, whatever that thing is, I've got your back. I'll vouch. I'll lie if I have to. Blinked, caught off guard. She'd expected suspicion, maybe fear, not this. Why? She asked flatly. Because we're soldiers, he said simply. Because you're one of us. And because I know what I saw, Moore, that shot you made. Nobody does that without help. I don't know what that watch is, but I know you didn't ask for this attention. So if covering for you helps, I will. Something unexpected stirred in her chest. Gratitude. But also guilt. Thanks, she said quietly. But this isn't the kind of problem that can be fixed with cover stories. It's bigger than that. Foster studied her, frowning. Then whatever it is, you're not alone. She didn't answer, couldn't. Because in 24 hours, she might not even belong here anymore. The day dragged on with drills and lessons, but none of it stuck. His mind circled the same question. Keep the watch, step into something dangerous, follow the ghost of her father, or hand it over, lose the last connection she had, and stay safe in the shadows. By evening, the answer still wouldn't come. She sat on her bunk, watch in her hands when appeared again. No words at first, just sitting across from her, folding her own laundry, ordinary motions in and day. Finally asked, what will you do? Shook her head. I don't know, my dad, he never talked about his service, never told me what he did, and now I find out he was someone else entirely. A sniper, a specialist. The watch, it's like a piece of him is still here, but I don't know if I should hold on or let it go. Leaned back, thoughtful. Do you think he'd want you to follow his path? The question hung in the air, swallowed hard. I think he'd want me to choose. That's what makes it harder. They sat in silence, broken only by the hum of the barracks lights. Ran her thumb over the cracked glass. She remembered her father's hands, steady, sure, guiding hers as a child. Breathe in, half out, squeeze. She remembered his laugh when she'd missed, his nod when she'd finally hit. He never talked about war, but he'd taught her the patience of a marksman. Maybe he had been teaching her, without ever saying it out loud. The next morning, decision day, came too fast. She barely slept. Forming up on the training field, she felt the weight of eyes again. But now she didn't care. The watch was on her wrist, sleeve rolled up. Not hiding, not anymore. After chow, she walked straight to William's office. He looked up from paperwork, studying her face, the way her shoulders squared. He didn't ask. He already knew she'd made up her mind. I'm taking the transfer, said, voice steady though her hands trembled. I want to understand what my father did. I want to honor him. If that means harder training, more risk, so be it. Williams leaned back slowly. You realize what you're asking for. This isn't basic training. The program you'll enter is designed to break people. The pressure, the isolation, most won't make it through. I know, said, but my father did, and if he could, maybe I can too. For the first time, William smiled, not mockery, not amusement, but quiet respect. Then I'll make the call. He pulled a folder from his desk, flipping it open. I dug deeper into your father's record. He wasn't just good, Moore, he was among the best. Multiple confirmed engagements beyond 2,000 meters. The watch recorded one at 3,000. His full file shows one at 4. His chest tightened, 4,000 meters, impossible, and yet written in cold ink on official pages. Your father didn't just carry this watch, Williams continued. He carried a reputation. If you choose this, you'll be stepping into that shadow. You ready for that? Looked at the cracked glass, ticking faintly on her wrist. I'm ready to try. Williams closed the file. Then prepare yourself. You'll be transferred within the week. The words felt final, heavy, but also like a door opening. Left his office into the crisp air of evening, lungs filling with something between fear and relief. She had chosen. Her path wasn't safe anymore. It wasn't easy. It wasn't even hers entirely. It was tied to a father she was only beginning to understand. But it was real. That night, as she packed her gear, the others came, folded uniforms into her duffel without being asked. Martinez limped in, offering a half-smile, muttered something about her making history, and Foster showed up last, holding a small package wrapped in brown paper. For your gear, he said, awkward. Inside was a toolkit, precision tools for maintaining delicate equipment, a soldier's gift, a friend's promise. Blinked hard, forcing the lump in her throat back down. Thanks, Foster. He shrugged. Just don't forget us regular guys when you're out there doing whatever it is you'll be doing. She almost smiled, almost. On her final morning at Fort, she stood at the same rifle range where everything had started. The sun broke over the horizon, golden light spilling across the long stretch of targets. She looked at the watch one last time, still cracked, still broken, still wrong. And yet it was guiding her. Maybe dignity didn't always speak. Maybe it didn't laugh or argue or explain itself. Maybe it just acted. Tightened the strap on her wrist, her father's watch, her father's legacy, and now her burden. The transport truck was waiting. And she didn't look back. What did it mean to start over? Sat in the back of the transport, duffel bag at her feet, watching Fort fade into the distance. The gravel, the rifle range, the barracks, it all slipped behind her like a chapter closing. She thought she'd feel relief. Instead, she felt hollow. The sergeant driving introduced himself only as, he didn't talk much at first, just steady hands on the wheel, miles of road passing in silence. Eventually, he glanced at her through the mirror. You know where you're headed. Fort Campbell, she answered. He nodded. Big place. 101st Airborne mostly. But that's not where you're going. They've got other facilities there, not on the brochures. Raised an eyebrow. Other facilities. Smirked. Let's just say not every mission looks like a standard deployment. Some need precision. Small units. Quiet work. The kind you don't see in recruiting commercials. She didn't ask more. She'd learned already, when soldiers talked in half sentences, it meant the rest was classified. Hours later, Tennessee hills rolled past the window. By the time they reached the gates, the sun was setting, painting the sky with streaks of fire and ash. Fort Campbell was bigger than she expected. Newer. Clean lines, modern ranges, specialized training grounds spread like a hidden city. Pulled up to a separate checkpoint. The guard didn't even glance at her orders, just waved them through. Inside, the facility looked nothing like the barracks at, sleek buildings, fenced-off ranges that stretched for miles. A quiet hum of power, like the place itself was alive with secrets. End of the line said, "You'll do fine." He didn't sound like he believed it. A woman waited at the reception center. Short hair, uniform crisp, posture perfect. The kind of presence that commanded respect without raising her voice. Private Moore, she said, scanning a file. Master Sergeant Kelly, welcome to the Advanced Tactical Program. Saluted. Kelly's return was brief, businesslike. This isn't basic training. It isn't advanced infantry. It's something else entirely. You're here because you possess two things. A device that shouldn't exist in civilian hands and the genetic predisposition to make use of it. Most soldiers can't. You might. That's why you're here. Blinked. Genetic predisposition. Kelly started walking and followed. Long-range marksmanship requires more than practice. It's visual acuity, spatial reasoning, reaction under stress, traits you can't teach. Your father had them. Initial testing suggests you inherited them. They pass through hallways into a dormitory. Not bunks this time, individual rooms. Simple but private. A desk, a bed, a narrow window overlooking long-distance ranges. Kelly handed her a, "This is yours. Privacy matters here. You'll need space to decompress. You'll also need to learn faster than you ever have. Training starts tomorrow. Building 7600 sharp." And just like that, Kelly was gone. Stood in the small room, duffel bag in hand, alone. She unpacked in silence, setting the watch on her desk. Out the window, she could see ranges stretching into the distance, dotted with steel silhouettes barely visible to the naked eye. This was where her father's footsteps had led, and now hers. Sleep came late, uneasy. At 600, she stood in Building 7 with 11 others. Men and women in PT uniforms, ranks scattered, privates, corporals, even a staff sergeant. The air buzzed with tension. Kelly entered, followed by a man in civilian clothes. He carried himself like an academic, not a soldier. "Dr. Harrison," Kelly introduced, "specialist in tactical systems." "Ladies and," Harrison began, "you are here because you've been identified as possessing rare potential. This program develops individuals capable of precision engagements and tactical operations at ranges most militaries consider impossible. You'll be trained with advanced equipment. Some of it you've never heard of. Some of it you were never meant to know existed." His pulse quickened. On the screen behind him, diagrams appeared, devices that looked eerily familiar. Watches, small tactical computers, variants of her father's. "These are integrated tactical support systems," Harrison explained. "It's devices, designed to augment human ability. They calculate firing solutions, map terrain, track environmental factors. They don't replace judgment, but they make judgment lethal at distances no one believes possible." The recruits shifted, murmurs rippled. "Understand this," Harrison continued. "The devices are not just tools, they adapt. They learn from their operator. The relationship between soldier and system determines effectiveness. You will either master that relationship or fail." Kelly took the floor again, laying out the reality. Training is in 3 phases. Phase 1, conditioning and baseline tactical skills. Phase 2, advanced marksmanship and technology integration. Phase 3, field operations. Success rate, 30%. The rest are reassigned, if you're lucky. 30%. Glanced around, some faces tightened, others went pale. Her own chest felt heavy. This wasn't bragging rights anymore. It wasn't about impressing recruits. It was survival. The day moved into assessments. Physical fitness, vision, coordination, stress tolerance. Tests she'd never seen before, depth perception measured by moving lights, reaction times calculated down to milliseconds. Her group included a corporal named Martinez, older, steady eyes. A private from Texas named Williams, broad-shouldered, quiet. And a sergeant named Jackson, sharp as steel, clearly already seasoned. During breaks, they compared backgrounds. Martinez had come from infantry, Williams from basic, Jackson from airborne. When they asked, she hesitated. "My father served in a specialized unit," she admitted carefully. "I inherited some equipment. Turns out it was more significant than I realized." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Older gen devices, heard rumors, more powerful than what we use now." "Something like that," said. She didn't elaborate, couldn't. That afternoon, Harrison placed new devices in their hands. Sleeker, sharper, modern models. The latest ITS units. "This is your partner," he said. "Learn it, trust it, but never forget you're still the one making the decisions. These devices amplify your strengths. They also amplify your mistakes." Strapped the unit on, fingers brushing her father's watch beneath her sleeve. The difference was obvious. Her father's device felt older, heavier, but somehow more alive. This new one was efficient, clinical, easier, but not the same. Harrison caught her glance. Private Moore, I understand you've seen an earlier generation model. How does this compare? Chose her words carefully. This one is cleaner, faster, but the older one feels like it was built without compromise. Harder to use, but stronger. Harrison studied her. His eyes flicked toward her sleeve like he already knew. That night sat at her desk, both devices side by side. One cracked, old, still glowing with secrets. The other new, polished, humming with possibility. She felt caught between two worlds, the past she barely understood and the future demanding she step into it. She touched the old watch. The cracked face flickered briefly, like it was aware of its younger cousin, like it was daring her to choose. The path wasn't safe, it wasn't simple, but it was hers now. And tomorrow, it would test her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. How much could a body take before the mind broke? Was starting to find out. The first week of training was designed to strip them down, not just physically, mentally. The instructors pushed harder than at Fort, runs stretched into miles, weighted packs biting into shoulders until skin peeled. Obstacle courses weren't about speed, but endurance, repeating until mistakes bled out of muscle memory. And the rifles, always the rifles. Every morning started with weapons drills. Assemble, disassemble, blindfolded, timed. Fail once, repeat until your hands shook. Fail twice, repeat until you collapsed. The rifles weren't just tools here. They were extensions of breath, bone, and will. Pushed harder than she ever had, but she wasn't the only one. Jackson was relentless. He finished first in nearly every drill, his experience obvious. Martinez wasn't as fast, but he was steady, dependable, never failing under pressure. Williams, the private from Texas, struggled at first, but his determination burned hot, driving him forward no matter how many times he fell behind. They were competitors, but more than that, they were mirrors, each one reflecting the possibility of failure back at her. By day 3, her body screamed with aches she didn't know existed. Her palms blistered raw from climbing walls and ropes. Her legs trembled even at rest. But worse than the pain was the quiet fear gnawing inside her. What if she didn't belong here? What if the only reason she was standing was because of a watch that wasn't even hers? On the 4th day, they were marched to the long-distance range. Targets stretched further than could see with her naked eye. Steel plates barely larger than a handprint shimmered against heat waves. Kelly's voice was firm, cutting through wind. These distances separate the ordinary from the exceptional. Your devices will assist, but they will not save you. Technique still matters. Breathing still matters. Mental discipline still matters. No excuses. They lay prone, rifles aligned. Harrison oversaw, monitoring data on a tablet as its units fed him performance metrics. Strapped on the new device, sleek, modern, its screen displayed wind calculations, range estimates, firing solutions. It was clean, efficient. But her father's watch burned beneath her sleeve. As she settled behind her scope, it stirred, numbers flickering faintly across the cracked glass. Not the clean, calculated precision of the new device. Something deeper, richer, data she couldn't fully understand. For a moment the two devices hummed together, the old and the new, not identical but connected. Her chest tightened, she ignored it, focused on the scope. "Shooter ready," Kelly called. Inhaled slowly, ready. She exhaled, squeezed. The round screamed across distance, echoing seconds later with a sharp clang. Dead center hit. Kelly's voice carried. "Solid shot, record it." Pulse raced, not just from pride but from fear. The old watch hadn't just mirrored the new, it had predicted faster, cleaner, as if it already knew the outcome before she pulled the trigger. She cycled the bolt, fired again, another hit. Again. And again. Whispers stirred among the others. Williams missed 3 in a row before finding his rhythm. Martinez hit most, steady as ever. Jackson, flawless, machine-like. His precision earned nods even from the instructors. But knew hers were different. She wasn't just firing with skill. She was firing with something else guiding her, something no one else had. That night she couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, both devices glowing faintly in the dark. The new one clean, steady. The old one alive, pulsing like a heartbeat. She touched the cracked face. "What are you?" she whispered. The glass flickered, and for the briefest moment she saw not numbers but letters. JM, her father's initials. Her throat closed. Was it just coincidence? Or had the device remembered him, his marksmanship, his history, and now carried it forward? The next day exhaustion set in heavier. They ran drills until dawn blurred into dusk. River crossings, mud crawling, navigation under stress. At every step pushed, even when her body begged to stop. But it wasn't just pain she carried, it was questions. Why had her father kept this from her? Why did the old device still live, when even the instructors treated such models as relics? And why, after all these years, did it still remember? By the end of the week, one recruit was gone, reassigned. He hadn't been able to keep up with physical requirements. Kelly didn't make a scene about it. She just read his name at morning formation, and the rest of them stood in silence, realizing how easy it would be to follow. Tighten the strap on her wrist, she wouldn't be next. But deep down she knew, survival wasn't the same as belonging. How do you measure yourself when the ground beneath you is taken away? Learned on a cold morning, gray skis pressing low over the range. The recruits were assembled, rifles slung, its units strapped tight. They'd grown used to the devices now, leaning on them like crutches. The old instincts dulled, the math done for them. Kelly's voice cut through the chill. "Today you will fire without assistance." Murmurs rippled. "No ITS, no calculators, no support," she gestured. "Hand them over." One by one, recruits unstrapped their devices. Some hesitated, fingers lingering on the screens. Did too. Her father's watch pulsed faintly under her sleeve, as if daring her to hold on to it. But she didn't. She slipped both, the new device and the old, into the tray with the others. Bare wrists naked. Kelly's gaze swept them like a blade. "Your predecessors didn't have technology, just training, instinct, breath, steel nerves. If you can't shoot without help, you don't belong here." Jackson smirked faintly, lying prone as if this were nothing new. Martinez exhaled steady, ready. Williams looked pale, stomach churned. Targets shimmered in the distance, heat and wind twisting the air. Shooter ready. Her hands trembled. No glowing numbers, no wind calculations, no guidance, just her breath and the faint tremor of fear. She fired. Miss. The echo was cruel. Again. Miss. Her throat closed. The memory of whispers at fort came back. Lucky shot, broken watch, cheat. Her chest tightened. Jackson's rifle cracked. Steel rang dead center. He cycled the bolt smoothly, hitting again and again. He looked over at her between shots, not with malice but with pity. Some people just aren't built for this more. Her jaw clenched. Kelly's voice carried across the range. "Reset, breathe." Pressed her cheek against the stock, tried to remember her father's voice. "Breathe in, half out, squeeze." She fired. The plate rang. Not dead center, but a hit. Something cracked open inside her chest, relief, pride, real, unassisted. But the next shot missed, and the one after. She wanted to scream, to demand her watch back, to prove she wasn't nothing without it, but she stayed silent, kept firing, miss hit, miss. By the end, her score was the lowest. Kelly's verdict was simple. More, you rely too much on the device. Out here, batteries fail, signals die. If you can't function without it, you're not worth deploying with it. The words stung more than the misses. That night in her room, stared at both devices on her desk. The new one gleamed, efficient. The old one pulsed faintly, alive. She hated them both. She strapped the old one on, tightening until it cut into her skin. "You don't get to carry me anymore," she whispered through clenched teeth. "Not unless I can carry myself first." The next days blurred into exhaustion. Drills stripped them raw. Marches broke them down. Recruits dropped out, 2 more reassigned by the end of the week. But refused to quit. Even when Jackson outshot her daily, even when her scores lagged, even when her body trembled from lack of rest. Williams surprised her, sticking by her side during runs, pushing her when she slowed. Martinez, too, steady encouragement without judgment. But Jackson kept pressing. Quiet digs, sharp looks. He wasn't cruel, just cold. A reminder that in this world weakness wasn't tolerated. And maybe he was right. Late one night, walked the empty range alone. The air was sharp, stars scattered like holes torn in the sky. She lay prone, no device, just rifle and silence. Her father's voice echoed, "It's not about the numbers, it's about stillness, patience, belief." She exhaled, slow and steady, fired. The plate rang. She reloaded, fired again. Another ring. She stayed there until dawn, fingers raw, body aching. By sunrise, her hit count had risen. Not perfect, not Jackson's, but hers, earned. When morning formation came, Kelly scanned the recruits. This program doesn't care about talent alone. It cares about resilience. Some of you are gifted. Some of you are stubborn. Both have value. But only one thing guarantees survival: refusal to quit. Stood exhausted, bruised, still there. That evening, Harrison called her into his office. He studied her file, then looked at her wrists. "You're struggling more than some, but you're still here. Do you know why?" Hesitated. "Because I don't want to let go of what my father left me." Harrison leaned forward. "No, because you're learning something the others aren't. That the device isn't the weapon. You are." Her breath caught. He nodded toward her sleeve. "That older unit of yours, it's different, stronger, but it's not magic. It learned from your father. Now it's learning from you. If you can't stand without it, you'll drown with it. But if you can, it will amplify what's already inside you." Left his office with a strange weight lifted. Her father hadn't given her a shortcut. He'd given her a mirror. The rest would be up to her. What happens when training turns into something real? Found out the night the alarms blared. Not combat alarms, exercise alarms, but the effect was the same: sudden adrenaline, hearts racing, bodies snapping awake. Recruits scrambled from their rooms, gear thrown on in seconds, rifles slung, packs shouldered. Kelly met them outside, her voice carried in the dark. Field exercise, 48 hours, full kit, navigation, survival, and target elimination. No instructors guiding you in the field. You'll move in. One of you leads. One of you fails, all of you fail. His throat dried. Kelly pointed to her. "More, your team leader." The word struck like a hammer. Jackson's smirk was immediate, sharp under the floodlights. "Her." Kelly didn't blink. "Yes, orders stand. More, your team is Martinez, Williams, and Jackson. Mission packets inside your ruck. Step off in 10. And then they were gone, leaving standing with 3 men staring at her. Williams gave a nervous grin. "Guess we're with you, more." Martinez just nodded, quiet as ever. Jackson slung his rifle, eyes hard. "Don't screw this up." They moved out into the woods. Moonlight filtered through bare branches, shadows long and cold. Pulled the packet from her ruck. Map, objectives, targets marked across miles of rough terrain. She strapped on her ITS unit, sleek, reliable. The others did the same, their screens lighting the night faintly. And then her father's watch pulsed beneath her sleeve. Stronger this time, sinking. Her new device flickered, data streams shifting. And for a moment she saw more. A layer of information the others didn't. Enemy positions, projected paths, heat signatures faint against the terrain. She froze. "Problem?" Jackson asked. Shook her head. "No, just orienting." But inside, she knew the truth. Her father's watch wasn't just syncing, it was enhancing, feeding the newer unit information it shouldn't have. The march was brutal. Miles of mud, hidden tripwires, obstacles set to slow them. By dawn, their shoulders ached, feet blistered. But the map glowed in wrist unit, clearer than the others, guiding her around hazards before they even saw them. Lucky guesses, Jackson muttered after she steered them around their third near ambush. Bit backwards, she couldn't explain, couldn't reveal. By afternoon, they reached the first objective, a target simulating an enemy communications hub. Guard posts, trip alarms, Claymore simulators rigged in the brush. Jackson crouched beside her. We hit from the north, cover fire from Williams. Martinez plants charges, textbook. Checked her display. The overlay from her father's watch shifted, showing a different weakness. South side, blind spot, timed patrols leaving a 2-minute window. She exhaled, we go south. Jackson's jaw tightened, that's suicide. No, said firmly, that's the opening, north side's got overlapping arcs, we'd be pinned. Martinez studied her, trusted her, nodded. Williams hesitated, then followed. Jackson glared, but moved with them. They waited 2 minutes, a patrol shifted, the blind spot opened. Signaled, they moved fast, silent. No alarms, no resistance. Martinez planted charges. 30 seconds later, the hub was gone, smoke and simulated fire lighting the sky. Williams let out a low whistle. Damn, more, that was clean. Jackson said nothing, but his silence was telling. That night they camped cold under tarps, taking turns on watch. Couldn't sleep. She sat staring at the cracked glass glowing faintly against her wrist. The old watch had guided her, protected her, but how far could she lean on it before it stopped being her skill at all? Her father's voice whispered in memory, tools help, but the hand pulling the trigger still matters. The second day pushed harder, more objectives, less rest. By evening the team was ragged, mud-soaked, running on empty. At one point Williams nearly collapsed carrying his pack, helped him up, steadying his weight. You don't have to, he muttered. Yes, I do, she said simply. They pressed on. At the final objective, Kelly's voice crackled in their radios. Live fire, hostile targets embedded with simulated civilians. You'll be scored on precision. Mistakes cost dearly. His pulse spiked. Civilians meant no margin for error, no recklessness. Through her scope, silhouettes blurred with shadows. The its gave calculations. Her father's watch added more, highlighting movements, distinguishing real from decoy. She trusted it, adjusted, fired. Targets dropped clean, no civilians hit. Jackson's shots were sharp but rushed. He clipped a civilian dummy once, earning a harsh tone from Kelly's radio. Martinez was steady, controlled. Williams struggled but improved. When it ended, the instructors stepped from the trees, collecting them. Scores tallied. Kelly's verdict was curt. Moore's team, highest success rate, clean precision, strong leadership. Exhaled, relief shaking her bones. Williams clapped her shoulder. Martinez gave a rare smile. Jackson stared at her, jaw tight, pride wounded. But didn't care. Because for the first time, she felt like she wasn't just carrying her father's shadow. She was stepping out of it. That night back in her room, she placed both devices side by side again. The new one gleamed. The old one pulsed, alive. She whispered to the cracked glass, "We did it." For the first time, she believed it wasn't just her father guiding her. It was her. What does the end of training feel like? Thought it would feel like victory. Instead, it felt like silence. The recruits who remained, half of the original 12, stood at parade rest outside Building 7. Their uniforms were torn, boots worn thin, faces hollowed by weeks of strain. But they were still standing. That alone was something. Kelly paced before them, her voice carrying weight. You've endured, you've bled, you've failed and stood back up. Now comes the final assessment. One exercise, pass and you advance. Fail and you're done. No retests, no excuses. Her gaze locked on each of them one by one. When her eyes met, there was no pity, only expectation. The briefing came in the form of a sealed envelope. Inside, a map, a target, a time limit, 24 hours. His team was split. No more familiar faces to lean on. She was paired with strangers, two she'd barely spoken to, plus Sergeant Jackson. He didn't look at her when they shouldered their rucks. The mission, infiltration. Target hidden deep in mountainous terrain, guarded by drones and simulated hostiles. Precision required. One shot, one chance. They moved out at dawn, fog rolling thick through the valleys. Every step was uphill, lungs burning with thin air. Hours of silence, only the crunch of boots and the occasional barked command to check bearings. Strapped both devices on. The new one efficient and steady. The old one cracked and alive, pulsing faintly beneath her sleeve. She swore she could feel it beating with her pulse. By mid-afternoon, the fog thinned. The target area sprawled below, tents, vehicles, heat signatures moving like restless ants. Drones circled above, their hum barely audible. They crawled into position. Jackson lay prone beside her, scanning with his scope. 200 meters of open ground. No cover. We'll need to time it with drone sweeps. Checked her display. The new unit showed patrol patterns. The old watch layered more blind spots, projected gaps in drone paths, shifts in guard packing. She hesitated. If she shared this, she'd have to admit what she carried. If she stayed silent, the mission risked failure. Jackson noticed. What is it? Her breath caught. She rolled her sleeve up just enough for him to see, the cracked glass pulsing faintly. His eyes widened. Recognition. That's one of the old ones. Whispered, it's my father's. Jackson stared, then to her surprise nodded. Then we use it. No mockery, no contempt, just the cold pragmatism of a soldier who wanted to win. They timed it, moved fast, silent, through the blind spot her father's watch revealed. Inside the perimeter, every second was razor-thin. Hostile silhouettes passed within meters. Hearts thundered louder than footsteps. They reached overwatch position without a shot fired. The target appeared, simulated high-value officer, flanked by guards. The others looked to Jackson. He looked to her. You take the shot, he said. Froze, you're senior. Doesn't matter, this is yours. She lowered her cheek to the stock. The world narrowed to crosshairs, breath, pulse, time. Both devices hummed. The new one gave solutions. The old one added more, adjustments so subtle she could feel, not read them. Her father's legacy whispering through the cracks. She exhaled, squeezed. The target dropped. Clean, silent. The exercise ended. On the march back, Jackson walked beside her. He didn't speak at first. Finally, he said, your father must been something. Swallowed hard, he never told me. Maybe he didn't need to, Jackson said. Maybe he left you this instead. He nodded toward the watch. Looks like it found the right hands. Back at the facility, the instructors debriefed them. Scores tallied. Success confirmed. Kelly's verdict was brief but heavy. More, outstanding. You're no longer a recruit. Welcome to the program. Applause wasn't part of it. No fanfare, just a nod. But it was everything. That night, alone in her room, she placed the old watch on the desk. The new device lay beside it, efficient, humming, but her eyes lingered on the cracked glass. She ran a thumb across its surface, whispering words no one else would hear. I didn't just carry you, Dad. I carried myself. The glass flickered faintly. Numbers, then letters, just once. Proud. Her throat tightened. Tears blurred her vision. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe it was just her exhausted mind. But she believed. She strapped the watch back on, pulling the sleeve down. Not to hide it, but to keep it close. Tomorrow the training would only get harder, missions darker, risks heavier. She would be tested again and again. But for the first time, she didn't feel like she was walking in her father's shadow. She was walking beside him. And with every step, she was becoming something more. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It doesn't argue, it doesn't explain. It simply acts.